lecture, we learn about define financial assets and explain their valuation in the balance sheet, objectives of cash management, explain means of achieving internal control over cash transaction, how to prepare a bank reconciliation and explain its purpose, accounts for uncollectible receivables using the allowances and direct write-off methods, evaluate the liquidity of various financial assets, how transaction discussed like in net income and cash flows, accounts for transaction involving marketable securities, and we compare and account for accrual of interest revenue. In financial assets, like every business needs enough cash to pay its bills, but cash-rich companies like General Motors, Intel, and Microsoft realize that cash is not a very productive asset. That is, it generates little or no revenue. In fact, banks are prohibited by law from paying interest on corporate checking accounts. Therefore, many financially sound companies store much of their cash in highly liquid, low-risk financial investments such as money market accounts and US government securities. And in this lesson, we discuss about the financial assets. If we discuss about the term financial asset, which describes not just cash but also those assets easily and directly convertible into noun account of cash. And the financial asset is a liquid asset that gets its value from a contractual right or ownership claim. Cash stocks, bonds, financial funds, and bank deposits are the examples of financial assets. Unlike land, property, commodities, or other tangible physical assets, financial assets do not necessarily have inherent physical worth or even a physical form. Rather, their value reflects factors of supply and demand in the marketplace in which they trade, as well as the degree of risk they carry. And in financial assets, financial resources, how quickly among these asset categories, like in the balance sheet, financial assets are shown at the current values, which meaning the amounts of cash that these assets represents. Interestingly, current value of the measured differently for each type of financial asset, and the current value of cash is imply its face amount, but the current value of the marketable securities may change daily based on fluctuation of stock prices, interest rates, and other factors. How much cash should be a business have? Like a little are necessary. Where we use cash. What is cash? Cash means accountant define cash as a money on deposit in banks and any items that banks will accept it for deposit. These items include not only coins and paper money but also checks, money orders, and traveler's checks. Banks also accept drafts signed by customer using bank credit cards such as Visa and Mastercards. The sales of customer using bank cards are cash sale, not credit sale to the enterprise that makes the sale. and the most of the companies maintain several bank accounts as well as keep a small amount of cash on hand. Therefore, the cash account in the general ledger is often a controlling account, and a cash subsidiary ledger includes separate accounts corresponding to each bank account and each supply of cash on hand within the organization. While cash is listed first in the balance sheet because it is most liquid of all current assets. For purpose of balance sheet presentation, the balance in the cash controlling account is combined with that of the controlling account for cash equivalent. And in marketable securities like financial assets which describe not just cash but also those assets which are easily and directly convertible into noun account of cash, and these assets include cash, short-term investments, short-term investment also called marketable securities, and receivables. And we address these three types of financial asset in the form of money or financial resources, and receivables are also used in the business. And the valuation of financial assets mean what is the value of finance, like the current value of cash is implied to face amount, and current value of marketable securities may change daily based on fluctuation in stock prices, interest rate, and other factors. While the valuation of financial assets, the type of financial asset are cash or cash equivalent, short-term investments, marketable securities, receivables, and basis for valuation in the balance sheet like face amount in the shape of cash and current market value in the shape of short-term investment, not realizable value in the shape of receivables, which are estimated collectible amount. And cash means cash is defined as any deposit banks will accept in shape of checks, money order, traveler checks, bank credit and credit cards, and kind and paper money as I discussed earlier. And restricted cash and line of credit. In restricted cash, we see the cash like some accounts are restricted as to their use, so they are not available to meet the normal operating needs of the company. For example, a bank account may contain cash specifically earmarked for the acquisition of plant asset. Bank accounts in some foreign countries are restricted by laws that prohibit transferring the money to another country, and cash that is not available for paying current liabilities should not be viewed as a current asset. Therefore, restricted cash should be listed just below current asset or section of balance sheet which are entitled investment funds. If we discuss about the granting of a loan, bank often requires a borrower to maintain a compensating balance on deposit in a non-interest bearing checking account. While the disagreement does not actually prevent the borrower from using the cash, but it does mean the company must quickly replenish the bank account. While the balances should be disclosed in the notes accompanying the financial statement. And what is line of credit? In line of credit, many businesses arrange line of credit with their banks. A line of credit means that the bank has agreed in advance to lend the money or lend the company or any institution any amount of money up to a specified limit, and the company can borrow this money at any time simply by drawing checks on a special bank account, and a liability to the bank arises as soon as any money is borrowed. That is, as soon as a portion of credit line is used. The unused portion of the line of credit is neither an asset nor an liability, and it represents only the ability to borrow money quickly and easily. Although an unused line of credit does not appear as an asset or a liability in the balance sheet, and it increases the company solvency. Thus, unused lines of credit usually are disclosed in notes accompanying the financial statement. And if we discuss about the statement of cash flows, where cash transactions of the accounting period are summarized in the statement of cash flows, and in the both balance sheet and the statement of cash flows, the term cash includes cash equivalents, transfer of money between bank accounts, and cash equivalents do not appear in the statement of cash flows because these transactions do not change the amount of cash owned. However, any interest received from owing cash equivalent is included in the statement of cash flows as cash receipts from operating activities. While if we discuss about the cash management refers to planning, controlling, and accounting for cash transaction and cash balancing, where we use the objective of cash management like provide accurate accounting for cash receipts, cash disbursement and cash balanced, and prevent or maximize losses from theft and fraud, anticipate the need for borrowing, and assure the availability of the adequate amount of cash for conducting business operations, and prevent unnecessary large amounts of cash from sitting idle in bank accounts that produce no revenue. And the cash management are also used for efficient management of these resources in essential to the success, even to the survival of every business organization. Because cash moves so readily between bank accounts and other financial assets, cash management really means the management of all financial resources, and it also refers to planning, controlling, and accounting for the cash transaction and cash balances, while it provides accurate accounting for cash receipts, cash disbursement, and cash balance, and it prevents or minimizes losses from theft or fraud, and anticipate the need of borrowing and prevent unnecessary bank deposits. While the bank statement, which reconciling the bank statement, like difference between bank records and depositor records, it means outstanding checks, deposit in transits, service charges, charges for depositing non-sufficient fund checks, credit for interest and miscellaneous bank charges or credits which are used in the bank statements. While in bank statement, we see that how we use these all checks or these systems to manipulate. And bank statements or big bank reconciliation means it is a schedule explaining any difference between the balance shown in the balance statement and the balance shown in the depositor accounting records. One thing kept in mind that both the bank and the depositor are maintaining independent records of the deposits and the checks and the current balance of the bank account. Each month, the depositor should prepare a bank reconciliation to verify that these independent sets of records are in agreements, and the reconciliation may disclose internal control failures such as unauthorized cash disbursement or failures to deposit cash receipts, as well as errors in either the bank statements or the depositor accounting records. In addition, the reconciliation identifies certain transactions that must be recorded on the depositor accounting records and helps to determine the actual amount of cash on deposit. And when we discuss about the outstanding checks mean checks issued and recorded by the company but not yet presented to the bank for payment. And deposit in transit mean cash receipts recorded by the depositor but that reached the bank too late to be included in the bank statement for the current month. Like 31st December, if we make a check for 31st December but it's present in the bank at 1st January, that is a deposit in transit check. And service charges, it means bank often charge a fee for handling small accounts, and the amount of this charge usually depends on both the average balance of the account and the number of checks paid during the month. Charges for depositing non-sufficient fund or checks means NSF, which are stands for non-sufficient funds. When checks are deposited in an account, the bank generally gives the depositor immediately credit. On occasion, one of these checks may prove to be uncollectible because the maker of the check does not have sufficient fund in his or her account. In such cases, the bank will reduce the depositor amount or account by the amount of his uncollectible items and return the check to the depositor marked as NSF, which is used for non-sufficient fund. And credit for interest earned means the checking account of uni unincorporated business often earn interest at month end. This interest is credited to the depositor account and reported in the bank statement. And miscellaneous bank charges and credit means bank charge for services such as printing checks, handling collection of notes receivable, and processing non-sufficient fund checks. The bank deducts these charges from the depositor account and notifies the depositor by including the debit memorandum in the monthly bank statement. And if the bank collects a note receivable on behalf of the depositor, it credits the depositor account and issues a credit memorandum. In reconciling the bank statement, we use to reconcile bank statement as a bank balance per bank and balance per depositor, or balance per passbook and balance per cash book, where balance per bank means we add deposit in transit less outstanding check, add or less bank adjustment which equal to adjusted balance in balance per bank statement, while balance per depositor statement means we add up the deposit by bank, we deduct service charges, we deduct non-sufficient fund checks, add or deduct bank book adjustment which equal to adjusted balance in the balance per depositor book. And petty cash funds means the petty cash funds are those funds, a small amount of cash on hand with which to make some minor expenditure. And in petty cash, we have to emphasize the importance of making all sufficient cash disbursement by check. However, every business finds it's convenient to have a small amount of cash on hand with which to make some minor expenditures. And examples of these expenditure include such things as small purchases of office supplies, taxi fares, or draft nets for an office meeting. To create petty cash fund, a check is drawn payable to petty cash for a round amount of such as $200, which will cover these small expenditure for a period of 2 or 3 weeks. And this check is cashed and the money is kept on hand in a petty cash box, and one employee is designated as the custodian of the fund. And in short term investment, marketable securities are like companies with large amount of liquid resources often hold most of these resources in the form of marketable securities rather than cash. And marketable securities consist of primarily of investment in bonds and in the capital stocks of publicly owned corporation. These marketable securities are traded, bought and sold daily on organized securities exchange such as New York Stock Exchange, Tokyo Stock Exchange, Mexico Stock Exchange, or Pakistan Stock Exchange. And a basic characteristic of all marketable securities is that they are readily marketable, meaning that they can be purchased or sold quickly and easily at quoted market price. While in marketable securities, we discuss about bond investment, readily marketable, almost as liquid as cash, capital stock investment, and current assets as a short-term investment. And in accounting for marketable securities, like purchase of marketable securities, recognition of investment revenue, and sale of investment are used as accounting for marketable securities. And if we discuss about the receivables like uncollectible account, and in uncollectible account we use reflecting uncollectible account in the financial statements. And in uncollectible accounts it means that the uncollectible accounts are stated that accounts receivables are shown in the balance sheet at the estimated collectible amounts called net realizable value. No business wants to sell merchandise on account to customers who will be unable to pay, and many companies even maintain their own credit departments that investigate the credit worthiness of each prospective customer. If a company makes credit sale to hundreds, perhaps thousands of the customers, such account inevitably will turn out to be uncollectible. And in uncollectible, a limited account or amount of uncollectible account is not only expected, but it is evidence of a sound credit policy of any institution or company. And if the credit department is overly conscious, the business may lose many sales opportunities by rejecting customer who should have been considered acceptable credit risk. And in reflecting uncollectible accounts in the financial statement, where we use an account receivable that has been determined to be uncollectible, is no longer an asset, but the loss of this asset represents an expense termed uncollectible account expense. In measuring business income, one of the most fundamental principles of accounting is that revenue should be matched with the expenses incurred in generating the revenue, while uncollectible accounts expense is caused by selling goods on credit to customer who fails to pay their bills. Therefore, this expense is incurred in the time period in which the related sales are made, even though specific accounts receivables may not be determined to the uncollectible until a later accounting period. Thus, an account receivable that originates from the credit sale in the month of January and determined to the uncollectible in August represents the expense in January. The allowances for doubtful accounts, like there are no way of telling in advance which account receivable will prove to be uncollectible. It is therefore not possible to credit the account of specific customer for overestimate of probable uncollectible accounts. Neither should we credit the accounts receivables collecting or controlling account in a general ledger. And if the accounts receivable controlling account were to be credited with the estimated amount of doubtful account, this controlling account would no longer be in balance with the total of numerous customer account in the subsidiary ledger. The only practical alternative, therefore, is to credit a separate account called allowance for doubtful accounts with the amount estimated to be uncollectible. The allowance for doubtful accounts often is described as a contra current asset account or a valuation account, and the net realizable value is the amount of accounts receivable that the business expect to collect, and accounts receivable less allowances for doubtful accounts is equal to net realizable value of account receivables. And writing off an uncollectible account receivables, where when an account is determined to be uncollectible, it is no longer qualifies as an asset and should be written off. And whenever an account receivable from a specific customer is determined to be uncollectible, it no longer qualifies as an asset and should be written off. To write off an account receivable is to reduce the balance of the customer account to zero, and the journal entry to accomplish this consists of a credit to the account receivable controlling account in the journal ledger and an offsetting debit to the allowance for doubtful accounts in the shape of allowance for the doubtful account debit and account receivables or credit with the amount of 500. It means to write off the receivable from discount stores as a collectible or J clerk as a uncollectible. The important thing to note in the entry is that the debit is made to the allowance for doubtful account and not to the uncollectible account expense account. The estimated expense of credit losses is charged to the uncollectible account expense account at the end of the each accounting period. And when particular account receivable is later determined to the worthless and is written off, this action does not represent an additional expense but merely confirms our previous estimate of the expense. And in writing off an uncollectible account receivable, like account receivable less allowance for doubtful accounts is equal to net realizable value. Notice that the 500 write-off did not change the net realizable value or nor did it affect any income statement accounts. And after the write-off, it means accounts receivable less allowance for doubtful accounts and net realizable value with the amount of 7,500. Estimating credit losses, the balance sheet approach means year-end accounts receivable is broken down into age of classification, and each age grouping has a different likelihood of being uncollectible, and compute the separate allowance for each age grouping, where at the end of each month, management should again estimate the probable amount of uncollectible accounts and adjust the allowances for doubtful accounts to this new estimate. And according to this estimate, we make a credit losses and the balance sheet approach. Estimating credit losses and the balance sheet approach means the most widely used method of estimating the probable amount of uncollectible account is based on aging the account receivable. This method is sometimes called the balance sheet approach because the method emphasizes the proper balance sheet valuation of accounts receivable, and aging accounts receivable means classifying each receivable according to its age. An aging schedule for the accounts receivables of any company, like here ISTCO inclines schedule accounts receivable by age in December 31 to 2009, where current days and 1 to 30 and 31 to 60 and over 60 days accounts receivable balance and estimated bad debt percentage and estimated uncollectible amounts are given. While estimating the credit losses, the balance sheet approach on this company like allowance for doubtful debt is 500 and 850, which is equal to 1350, and the journal entry of estimating credit loss is uncollectible account expense and allowance for doubtful accounts, where to record uncollectible account expense estimated. And this approach is fast and simple. No aging schedule is required and no consideration is given to the existing balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts. And estimating credit losses, the income statement approach means its approach means uncollectible accounts percentage is based on actual uncollectible accounts from prior year's credit sales. And in this approach, net credit sale multiplied by percentage estimated uncollectible divided by amount of journal entries are used in the estimating the income statement approach. And estimating the credit losses, the income statement approach means in this approach, in this company like ISTCO, credit sales has been uncollectible with the percentage of 1%, and at 2009 the estimate of uncollectible accounts expense is $600, where 60,000 multiplied by 0.01 is equal to 600, and journal entry of this balance is uncollectible account expense debit with the amount of 600 and allowance for doubtful accounts or credit with the amount of 600. Recovery of an account receivable previously written off, subsequent collection requires that the original right of entry be reversed before the cash collection is recorded, like account receivable debit and allowance for doubtful accounts credit, and cash debit and accounts receivables are credit. Notes receivable and interest revenue. In notes receivable and interest revenue, like if we take a formula of interest, the interest formula include three variables, like interest is equal to principals multiplied by rate of interest multiplied by time. And when we computing the interest for 1 year, time equals to 1. When the computation period is less than 1 year, then time is enough fractions. For example, we needed to compute percentage for 6 months, time would be 3 divided by 12. And interest rate are usually are stated on the annual basis. In making interest computation, the convenient is to assume that each month has 30 days. Thus, the year has 360 days for each month represent 1 by 12 of the year. And as these assumptions greatly simplify the computation of interest and assist students for focusing on the underlying concept, where we use accounting for notes receivables like in the shape of the most field of business notes receivables are seldom encountered and some field they occur frequently to make contribute an important part of the total assets like interest receivables debit with the amount of 200 and interest revenue credit with the amount of 200 like 10,000 multiplied by 10,000 is a whole company loans and 12% is the total percentage on interest and 60 divided by 360 means 60 is the total number of days and 360 days are in a 12-month total 360 days which is equal to $200 where notes receivable and interest revenue are included like when entry would Hall company make on the maturity date 10,000 multiplied by 12% multiplied by 90 divided by 360. 90 means 3 months which equal to 90 days is equal to 300 where cash is debit and interest receivable is credit with the amount of 200 and interest revenue is credit with the amount of 100 and notes receivables are credit with the amount of 10,000. Days remaining in November like 30 minus 1 is equal to 29 and days in December 31 and days needed in January which is 30. Note terms in days is equal to 90 days. Total number of days is 90 days. And in notes receivables and interest revenue, we discuss about discounting notes receivable is not a widespread practice today because most banks no longer purchase notes receivable from their customer and the practice of discounting notes receivable is most widespread among banks themselves. Many banks sell large packages of their notes receivables loans to agencies of the federal government or other financial institutions. And from a conceptual point of view, discounted notes receivables is essentially the same as selling accounts receivables to a factor. While we make a decision for accrual interest on the basis of the interest-bearing investments, and in most of the notes receivables, however, are owned by financial institution. Why financial institution? Because for these businesses, interest revenue is material. In fact, it generally the company primary source of revenue, and in these circumstances, greater care must be taken to assign interest revenue to the period in which it actually is earned. And when we discuss about the notes receivable and interest revenue, we also discuss about the maker of the notes default, like a note receivable that cannot be collected at maturity is said to have been defaulted by the maker, and immediately after the default of the note, an entry should be made by the holder to transfer the amount due from the note receivables account to the account receivable from the debtors. And we also make a journal entries of for the notes default in shape of accounts receivable debit, notes receivable credit, interest receivable credit, and interest revenues credit when we record default of any company on the 90 days, 60 days, or for 30 days. And notice that the interest earned on the note is recorded through the maturity date and is included in the account receivable from the maker. The interest receivable on the defaulted note is just as valid a claim against the makers as the principal amount of the note.